This is the examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brewski.
You know, the whole thing, cross your T's, dot your I's. Be very detailed in what you do, in case there's a test at the end of the class, or life comes back to catch up with you. It's always extremely important when we're talking about court proceedings. Sometimes you may wonder why it's such a monotonous task sometimes listening to a trial, or the steps that must be taken to get from point A to point B. But there is a reason for all of that. Reason being, if there's any mess up, slip up in the process that could be deemed or looked at as influencing the jury, influencing the outcome of the trial in a biased way, in some way, shape, or form, it can result in a mistrial. It can result in clemency. It can result in a whole slew of possible things, basically on a technicality. That's essentially what we're talking about, is like a technicality which could completely sway a case one way or the other, even if an individual is found guilty on the charges and they look guilty as sin. Let's talk about Lori Vallow for a moment, because as expected, and their attorneys would be derelict in their duty if they were not going and trying to get some sort of appeal here on her conviction, but they're asking for a whole new trial. Why are they asking for a whole new trial? That's what we're going to talk about here. Just a few weeks after that verdict on May 25th, Jim Archibald and John Thomas, they filed a motion in Fremont County Court. They're not asking for leniency. They were asking for that new trial. The basis for this request is intriguing and has sparked conversation across a lot of dinner tables and podcasts and anybody who was paying attention to this trial. According to the defense, the jury instructions were confusing. What does that mean? How does it affect the case? Let's unpack it. In the legal sphere, there's two types of evidence often presented in cases such as these: demonstrative evidence and character evidence. Demonstrative evidence, in simplest terms, is the physical and visual stuff. Photographs, objects, summaries of evidence provided by law enforcement. It helps paint the picture of the situation, the event, or the individual in question. Character evidence, on the other hand, relates to the character or behavior of an individual, and it's used to show that someone acted in accordance with certain characteristics at a particular time. This is where things get a little tangled in the Vallow case. The defense argues that the jury was confused between these two types of evidence, particularly regarding the shooting of Charles Vallow, Lori's ex-husband, which took place in Arizona. Charles' death was presented as evidence during the trial, but only to show Lori's prior behavior. The jurors were supposed to consider it as demonstrative evidence only, not as a contributing factor to the crimes Lori was charged with in Idaho. The defense has an unexpected ally in their claim, one of the jurors themselves, and what they said in a recent interview with East Idaho News. This juror stated that they didn't consider the Arizona evidence during the deliberations. It seems to confirm the defense's argument that the jury was confused. In addition to this, the defense presented other factors for requesting a new trial. They included a clerical error in the indictment that had initially listed the Idaho code under the wrong charge of grand theft. Although the judge allowed this error to be fixed, the defense argues that the indictment should not have been amended by the government. A further reason is the inconsistency with the conspiracy charges. The indictment refers to other alleged co-conspirators, known or unknown, quote unquote, and included Chad Daybell, Lori's ex-husband, and Alex Cox, her deceased brother. However, during the trial, only two of these people were mentioned, even though the defense was on notice that the conspiracy involved 5 people. This discrepancy, the defense argues, was both prejudicial and unlawful. Lori Vallow, the woman at the center of all of this convoluted case, well, she is currently sitting in Madison County Jail waiting for her sentencing hearing scheduled on July 31st. She faces life in prison, yet the fate of this deeply troubled mother isn't quite sealed yet. The prosecution has the opportunity to respond to the motion for a new trial. Ultimately, the final decision rests in the hands of the presiding judge. Now, you might wonder, is this a common occurrence, asking for a new trial? According to former Idaho Attorney General and defense attorney Dave Leroy, it actually is. A lot of motions are often necessary or appropriate before an appeal is filed, providing the judge with a formal notice of alleged errors made during the original trial. So, we are on course for normalcy here. That said, it's important to note that one juror's statement doesn't necessarily reflect the understanding or views of all 12 jurors. Each juror brings their unique perspective and understanding of the deliberation process, and it's entirely possible that other jurors interpreted the instructions differently. However, the compelling nature of this argument presented by the defense may prompt the court to explore it further. It's possible the prosecution might even ask for a deposition, a testimony under oath from the juror who gave the interview. It's fascinating. We don't know what exactly will happen with it. A lot of the odds in this case point to it not going anywhere. But it's a strange case, and stranger things have certainly happened in it. At the end of the day, it's a lesson in words have meaning. They have consequences as well, whether it be something clerical in the verbiage of documents or an interview given after the fact. Words do carry power. How much power in this case? Time will tell.
This is the examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Bruschi.
See what happens. Press subscribe wherever you download podcasts so you don't miss any breaking updates or discussions on the cases that we're following for you right here. Get an ad-free experience when you sign up through Apple Podcasts right now. Do check that out. I'm Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.